Welcome to Should I Read It? Should I Read It is a weekly podcast that takes a deep dive into books. I'll provide a summary of the book and tell you how the ideas in the book relate across all the books we've covered so far. Welcome to Should I Read It? Episode 30. Today we're going to look at Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. The dream of every creative is to do some work that lives on forever. Work that is referred to in the annals of their industry as defining work. Something that continues to sell more and more as the years go on. To build that perennial seller, that's exactly what Ryan Holiday's book of the same title is attempting to teach you to do. Here's a quote from him. Is that not the kind of lasting success that every creative person strives for? To produce something that is consumed and sells for years and years, that enters the canon of our industry or field, that becomes seminal, that makes money and has impact while we sleep, even after we've moved on to other projects. This book is split into two broad sections. The first half of the book is telling us what a perennial seller looks like and what it's going to take to build a product worthy of that mantle. The second half of the book is all about what it takes to tell people about the product so that what you've built can become something that sells regularly. If you're not marketing a product, then nobody is doing it for you. Inside the two broad sections, there are two smaller divisions, which gives us 4 ideas around which the book is centered. Here's a quote from the book to show the purpose. It will teach you how to make something that can stand the test of time, how to perfect, position, and package that idea into a compelling offering that stands the test of time, how to develop marketing channels that stand the test of time, how to capture an audience and build a platform that can stand the test of time. The beginning of the book sets the stage with a bunch of talk about where you need to focus in broad strokes if you want to build a product that lasts. Here's a quote from the book. People claim to want to do something that matters, yet they measure themselves against things that don't and track their progress not in years, but in microseconds. And how we sabotage ourselves in the midst of making some attempt to build something that lasts. Again, back to Holiday. And how to avoid falling into the seduction of short-term notability to focus on the real brass ring, long-term success and renown. Finally, he wants to cover how almost every incentive that is lauded as something worthwhile is the exact opposite of the thing from that which we should be aiming for. That is, if you want to build creative work that lasts. Again, back to Holiday. The truth is that they never give themselves a real shot at it. They fail because strategically they never had a chance. Not when almost every incentive, every example, every how-to guide they look to, even the cues they take from well-meaning fans and critics, leads them in the wrong direction. Before you move further in this review, take a step back and write down how you measure success. Now, do you measure it against short-term things? Are you watching all those stars around you for cues on what you should be doing? Now let's dive into part 1, the creative process. Ryan Holiday started his career with Trust Me, I'm Lying. You'll find a link to that in the show notes, which was an expose on how the media worked. His main gig is Brass Check. Again, there'll be a link in the show notes, which is a marketing firm. When he says that we prioritize marketing and sales over building a great product, he knows of what he speaks. Here's a quote from the book. While there are many different types of success in this world and prioritizing marketing and sales over the product may lead to some of them, that's not how perennial success is created. His job at Brass Check is to take a great product and help turn it into something that sells. In this book, he talks about working with James Altucher on a book and sending him back over many revisions to build something that was awesome instead of just mediocre. Here's another quote from Holiday. To be great, one must make great work, and making great work is incredibly hard. It must be our primary focus. We must set out from the beginning with complete and total commitment to the idea that our best chance of success starts during the creative process. No marketing can save mediocre work. Mediocre work is going to end up with mediocre sales. They're going to stop. If that's not what you want, and I'm assuming it's not, then the first section is all about what it takes to build a creative product that blows people's minds. Building something that is awesome isn't just having the idea for something awesome. It takes hard work. You will not build it. They will not come. Here's another quote from Holiday. The difference between great work and an idea for great work is all the sweat, time, effort, and agony that go into engaging that idea and turning it into something real. The difference is not trivial. If great work were easy to produce, a lot more people would do it. It will take hard work to build that business you want. The coaching clients that I work with that don't see change are the ones that come back week after week and say they didn't do the work we agreed they'd be doing. They're also the ones that I fire because I hate wasting my time. Are you willing to do the hard work it will take to build something that's worth keeping around for the long term? Remember that hard work is hard. It requires giving something up. Here's a quote from Holiday. In the course of creating your work, you are going to be forced to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice in order to do it? Will I give up X, Y, Z? A willingness to trade off something, time, comfort, easy money, recognition, lies at the heart of every great work. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but always a significant sacrifice that needs to happen. If it didn't, everyone would do it. Around my house, I give up TV almost every night of the week. Last night I read, and then I had an idea for a blog post I sketched out while I talked to my wife and she sewed. Netflix was put forward as an option, but turned down because we couldn't sit together and watch something. We didn't say this, but we both decided to sacrifice easy entertainment in the face of something that was far more valuable for the long term. She made a beautiful dress for herself. I learned more about running an awesome business. Another great thought in this section is the idea of divorcing ourselves from the easy and instant culture that's all around us. While some awesome creative works can be built in a flash of inspiration in a few hours, most of them will take more time than you figured they would. Here's a quote from Holiday. In the way that a good wine must be aged, or that we let meat marinate for hours in spices and sauce, an idea must be given space to develop. Rushing into things eliminates that space. Ideas require testing. That may mean testing your book ideas and blog posts to better understand how you think about the ideas at the same time as gauging which ones resonate with your audience. One of the ideas that I tested recently was my thoughts on saying no to prospects that went on to become clients. I did this when I spoke at WooConf in 2017. Here's another quote from the book. But when Rubens says that the best art divides the audience, he means that it divides the audience between people who don't like it and people who really like it. When I got my ratings at this conference, I either had full marks for being awesome or I was called an ass. More people thought it was a great talk, but knowing that the idea was polarizing is perfect to me. The final great idea is the one that you must be scared of doing justice to your idea if it's an idea that's worth doing. Here's another quote from Holiday. The more nervous and scared you are, the more you feel compelled to go back and improve and tweak because you're just not ready. The better it bodes for the project, because your goal is one that should make any rational person tremble. Just after I finished this book, I read Finish by Jon Acuff. Yeah, you'll find a link in the show notes. That book is all about not chronically starting new projects, but finishing. It's funny to read the advice in Finish by Acuff about not worrying so much about perfection and instead get things shipped. It's funny because it's in contrast in some ways to what Holiday was just saying. The two books are really for different audiences in my mind. Where Perennial Seller is for the ready, fire, aim types, that's kind of me. Finish is for ready, aim, some more types. Which book resonates best with you depends on what you suffer from most. I'm more in the camp that needs to read Perennial Seller. As you leave this section, remember that great creative work is not the product of lightning strikes. It's hard-won, hard work that requires focus and sacrifice. And now on to part 2, positioning. What's the dream of the creative? I spoke about it recently at a local event. We dream that we will do work and that the work will be loved by the masses. The publisher will publish it without any revisions. That's a fantasy land, people. Here's a quote from Holiday. Deep down, we all harbor a fantasy. We do creative work, throw it in the mail, someone else sends us a contract and doesn't bother us again. No one gets to tell us what to do. Our art remains pure and untouched. Well, it's time to abandon that desire and focus on what it's going to take to get the amazing creative work you did in the market. Here's a quote from the book. The first wake-up call for every aspiring perennial seller must be that there is no publisher or angel investor or producer who can magically handle all the stuff you don't want to handle. Sending in your proverbial manuscript is not the end of the hard work on a project. It's not even the end of the beginning of the amount of work that is required. In this section, Holiday says that we should at least be taking the same amount of time we took to build the product to market it. You're not done when you launch. You're just barely starting. Now, if something isn't selling, remember, it is your fault. Here's a quote from Holiday. Adults create perennial sellers, and adults take responsibility for themselves. Children expect opportunities to be handed to them. Maturity is understanding you have to go out and make them. Now, this task of showing your work to the outside world starts before you launch the product. It starts in the first section as you are testing your ideas in the mainstream. Here's a quote from Holiday. "The fact is, most people are so terrified of what an outside voice might say that they forego opportunities to improve what they are making. Remember, getting feedback requires humility. It demands that you subordinate your thoughts about your project and your love for it and entertain the idea that someone might have a valuable thing or two to add to it." I was recently talking to a friend that sold his company for a few million. We both were in firm agreement that almost no one is going to steal your idea. First, they have their own ideas already and they aren't executing on them. Second, only you can do your idea your way. That means share your ideas with people. No one's going to steal them. If you can only find people that love your idea, work to find people that hate it. Find people to give you criticism so that you can take that and use it to refine your work. Holiday is also a proponent of building around a niche, at least at first. Start with what makes you unique. Once you have an audience, you can branch out, but at first you need that niche so you can market effectively. Here's a quote from the book. "For creators, it is typically easier to reach the smaller, better defined group. If you reach the smaller group and wow them, then many opportunities will spread outward and upward." The final big idea from this section is an echo of what he talked about in the beginning. Don't follow in the moment success if you want to achieve something that sticks for a long time. I'll leave you with these 3 quotes from the book. Stop and ask yourself again, what instant recognition are you looking for? How is it holding you back? Here's the quotes to end part 2. If your goal is to make a masterpiece, a perennial seller for a specific audience, it follows that you can't also hope as a trendy, of-the-moment side hustle. And number 2. Likewise, if you fall into this way of tracking your fellow creators on social media, or you check the charts every week to see what other people are doing, you're going to sap yourself of the discipline required to do what you are trying to do. And the 3rd. Many creators are distracted by critics, by prizes, by buzz, or media attention, or impressing their friends. And they forget this. They forget their audience, customers, and fans. Now, part 3, marketing. This section is all about getting your work out to the people that will be interested in it, and it starts with a sobering reminder about your competition. Here's that reminder from the book. We are fighting not just against our contemporaries for recognition, but against centuries of great art for an audience. Each new work competes for customers with everything that came before it and everything that will come after. Stop and think about that as you look at your offerings. What makes you stand out from all the others? A great question to ask yourself is, if my company or customers wanted someone much better than I am, what would that person look like? Then, do the research and the work to become that person. Put those practices into your business so that you are the business your customers are looking for. One of the fundamental concepts of this section is that you need to build word-of-mouth marketing if you want your product to keep selling, because you can't always be on. Here's a quote from Holiday. "No one has the steam or the resources to be actively marketing something for more than a short period of time. So if a product is going to sell forever, it must have strong word of mouth. It must drive its own adoption. Over the long haul, this is the only thing that lasts." Now, like he said earlier, that should start by finding a niche and marketing to it. Here's another quote from him. "When my company works with musicians, we start by finding the most obscure and specific outlets you can think of. The point to finding more and more obscure niches is that you can find one that you match with perfectly. Other influencers will follow deep niche sites, and you'll get on their radar. Then you can expand to a wider audience." Just like Dash says in The Incredibles, when his mom says that everybody is special, that's the same thing as trying to say that no one is. When you're focusing on everyone, or people like me, you're focused on nobody. Once you've found that niche, you need to make sure that your product is easy to get into the hands of people. Holiday suggests that pricing very inexpensive at first is a great way to get your product into the hands of those people. You can't do this always, but remember, with books particularly, you're not going to become a millionaire. The books are almost always an introduction to some other offering that you have. Here's a quote from Holiday. "Even after giving a lot of books away to drive discovery, at some point I would have to begin to charge, or discovery wouldn't be worth much. It's quite rare where free is a strategy that works indefinitely. This is a business after all." Another strategy is to get on the radar of an influencer and then stay on it. When you find an influencer who likes your product, hold on for dear life. Send them more stuff, then they know what to do with. Chances are they have influencer friends. When this influencer loves your work, they'll share it, and you'll build a wider audience. Remember, this influencer is gold, so treat them like it. Send them thank you cards or something. Continually impress them. Near the end, Holiday revisits the idea of taking a stand again and getting your work out there. You may have the next great novel in you. If it stays inside, it doesn't matter because no one is ever going to see it. Here's how he says it. No one gets coverage for thinking about doing something. You get coverage for taking a stand, for risking something, for going out there and creating news where there wasn't any before. You don't get coverage for what you feel or what you believe, only what you do with those feelings or beliefs. If you want attention, then you need to get your work out there. You need to take a stand in your niche and likely offend some people. If no one is telling you that you're wrong, you may not have anything worthwhile to say. Now, part 4, platform. The final section is about the platform you have, or for some, the platform you don't have and never spent the time building. Here's how Holiday says it. Everyone wants a platform when they need one. People want to have a big list. They just don't want to lay the groundwork for one beforehand. If you want to launch a product next year, you need to start building a platform now. When I talk to clients about blogging, we keep it simple. A tweet and about page, and then start writing. The only thing we add to the basics is the email list. That email list gets the blog post you published. Jeff Goins also identified this in The Art of Work. Yeah, there'll be a link in the show notes, though he casts it as a commitment problem. Here's how he says it. In our world today, we have a commitment problem. Everywhere we look, it seems you can find a lack of commitment or follow-through. Leaders shirk responsibilities, politicians blame the other party, and many drift from one job to the next, never fully committing to any of them. We are leaders if we're publishing. We need to stick with the hard work if we want to succeed. Without the hard work done in advance, the chances of your creative endeavors amounting to anything shrink drastically. You're always trying to get the most direct connection with the people that like your ideas. This connection is your platform. Here's how Holiday puts it. Becoming a perennial seller requires that more than just releasing a product into the world, it requires the development of a career. It means building a fan base both before and after a project. And it means thinking differently than most people out there about selling something. Having a platform means that after you write that book, you got more stuff to say. You continue to have points for your followers to engage with you. Here's another tip from Holiday. The best marketing you can do for your book is to start writing the next one. While you spend time marketing the work you've just finished, you keep thinking about the ideas for the next book. And then when you're finishing out the marketing for your current work, you start the next one. The people that bought your first work will have some overlap with your second item and your third. Your second and third will reach different people, and some of them will look back at the stuff you did before, and they're going to purchase it. The final thing that Holiday addresses in his conclusion is luck, and the admission that luck plays a part in creating something worth time for others. Here's how he says it. It would be dishonest to talk about creating a classic perennial seller and pretend that luck has nothing to do with it, because luck matters a lot. Now, luck is more than just random happenings, though. It's hard work and watching for the right opportunity to push the buttons hard. Like that right influencer finding you and then continuing to nurture that relationship. Now, here's how Holiday puts it. The more you do, the harder you work, the luckier you seem to get. This episode of Should I Read It is brought to you by my latest book, The Art of Focus. If you're tired of running around trying different ideas and getting no traction, if you are tired of having ideas, but you never actually get to work on them, if you're just tired, then The Art of Focus is for you. It's going to give you the exact systems I've used to build my ideal life, set up my times that I can really work and get lots done in the 6 hours a day that I work most days, and test my ideas in the marketplace so that I know they succeed. You can purchase it on Amazon at curtismchale.ca/recommends/AOF. As always, our last question is, should you read Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday? Now, as I said earlier, I am absolutely a ready, fire, aim type, so this book was right up my alley. It made me rethink the current quarter goals and not worry so much about getting 3 books out in a quarter. Now, I did get the video course out. Yeah, there'll be a link to that in the show notes. And did an awesome job on it. I learned some stuff about running it that I would have been hard to learn if I had sold all the copies I'd originally wanted to. The other 2 books are going, but only one of them is likely to happen this year. That year is actually last year, 2017. The other things are going to happen in 2018. If you're someone who starts a bunch of stuff but rarely finishes, then you should read Finish by John Acuff instead. It's more about not getting stuck by perfectionism. Then, once you've got over some of your perfectionist hurdles, read Perennial Seller to get a great set of insights into what it takes to build something that's worth purchasing decades from now. Thanks for listening to Should I Read It? To support the show, you can leave me a review in iTunes or a heart or a star in whatever podcast player you use. These help more people find the show. If you want to get more reading done, you should get an Audible membership. If you use curtismchale.ca/recommends/audible, that will help the production of the show financially.